The microphone may not be perfect. We have a new one coming in, so this is probably the best we're going to do for today, tomorrow, and maybe Monday or Tuesday before the new one comes in. I just ordered a new one last night, so I hope this is okay. If the feedback is too bad or if it's a little too tinny, let me know. I'll see if I can adjust that. But it's good to be here. It's 4 o'clock. Well, it's 4:03 on a Wednesday. And just watching the stock market. Usually, to those that are new to this site, on occasion I talk about stocks I may have purchased or what's happening with the market overall. I did buy Tesla yesterday. I'm about even on that now. I think it just fell too much. But the market today gave up a lot to end the day. It was up over 600 points, but a pretty good market overall. In any event, we are here live, and we're going to follow up a little bit on our conversation yesterday. We talked about social media, the issue in Madison, that we've got quite a few emails and feedback on that. And we'll talk about Trump's Nobel nomination. We'll look at who made that nomination and a little bit about him. Usually we want to do a little more research into things before we just say, hey, congratulations, you got a nomination. It's pretty easy to nominate somebody. So we'll talk about that. The other issue is on the podcast itself, on Branford 7, it says Branford Development Presidential Race Listener Questions. I don't know why that keeps popping up. I can't figure that out, but the actual topics are on the video: energy plan in Branford, the Nobel Prize nomination, and the social media discussion. The social media discussion is something I learned yesterday. We talked about this issue in Madison where the head of the DTC, the Democratic Town Committee, was offended, we should say, by a comment made by Eileen Banish, who is the head of the Chamber of Commerce and the vice chair of the Republican Town Committee. They have a history. What I didn't realize yesterday when we were talking about it was that they had the head of the DTC ran against Banish's husband 5 years ago. So there's clearly a personal vendetta involved in this. To be that up in arms, that bent out of shape over the suggestion that someone shoots a bagel, as we talked about yesterday, is so absurd. And the real problem there isn't that this person wrote this letter and pretended to be offended. It's that nobody on the Democratic side in that party said no. Said, hey, there's a clear conflict here. This is clearly crazy. Nobody stopped it. There's always going to be crazy actors. There's always going to be actors that are out of sorts or bad mood or just nuts. But that the party didn't say enough's enough, we're not doing this, we're not going there, is indicative of the party. And that's not Democrats in general, that's that group of Democrats in Madison. And that they all jumped on this bandwagon and basically began what was essentially a bullying campaign, calling for someone's job, calling her offensive, just calling her a ridiculous amount of names, was an embarrassment. And there are legitimate issues or legitimate things posted online we can get upset about, we should bring attention to. But the suggestion that someone shoot a bagel is so absurd, and I just it's not fathomable. But part of that discussion, and we also talked about yesterday how a couple of Democratic parties, including Branford, had posted that independent party endorsements were basically taking advantage of stupid voters who didn't understand that they weren't unaffiliated and they were trying to get voters to Republicans. And yesterday, we saw a post from the young man running in Madison, a Democrat, who said he got the independent nomination. Today, we got a press release that Christine Cohen got the independent nomination. So these posts are idiotic. And really what needs to happen is political parties need to, maybe this has to come from guidance from the state parties or from the national parties, but they need to start having a written social media plan. Something in place where there is a protocol where select people decide what's written, it is fact-checked, it is make sure it makes sense. In my opinion, posts to a political page should be pro that party and not negative on another party. But it's becoming that social media has become sort of this, yeah, you take care of it. And some overeager Democrat or overeager Republican grabs it and it becomes a personal page for them. And they post whatever links, whether it's true or not, whatever propaganda they can post, and to rile up the base. And it's not helpful. And it's the example I gave yesterday is, I happen to know this because I get press releases from Democrats, Republicans, from candidates, And those press releases are typically vetted and they go through them in great detail and multiple people see them. A social media post is the exact same thing. It's a press release. It's indicative of the party's beliefs presented to the public. And they have to start looking at them that way. And we have to start having, these parties need to protect themselves from this crap by having some sort of internal process and internal protocols before posting things publicly. Social media cannot be an afterthought anymore. When you have a president that posts literally today 17 times in a half hour after he was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. Obama used social media in groundbreaking ways to win an election. Everybody uses it. Chris Murphy's on it constantly. Local officials are on it constantly. We need to start thinking of them as press releases, as official statements from parties, official statements from politicians, not just some side thing, because far too many people are posting and saying stupid things on social media. And unfortunately, political parties are very much cults. The DTCs, the RTCs, they are groups of people that have said, I am going to follow whatever the leadership tells me to do. And when you have this ridiculous post that they were offended by bagels in Madison, and then the whole party jumps on board and starts bullying this person, attacking this person over a nonsense, idiotic, stupid joke, then it's social media gone too far. Someone in your party has too much power and shouldn't have that level of authority to be posting in the official capacity of the party. So I would like to see parties start stepping up and fixing that problem. I don't know if that will happen or not, but that's just one of the things. Okay, so we talked about that. I was kind of enamored today with the news that Trump was nominated for a Nobel Prize. And I'm sorry, I'm not reading. All right, the mic is much better. I'm sorry. You're free to comment, whether you're watching this in Madison or Guilford or Branford 7 or even YouTube. You can comment. The program I have aggregates all those comments and sends them to one place. So I'll try to respond. I may not be able to type a response, but I'll try to respond if there are questions. Talking about, I'll give you a little bit of insight on how I work when I see news, when something happens. So today we get all this news that Donald Trump is nominated for a Nobel Prize. And it's this person, now Nobel Prize, in order to be nominated, it's just somebody who's in an official capacity somewhere, right? So I can't nominate anybody, but I would imagine the governor can, or somebody in state government or federal government can, and they can make a nomination. Nothing prevents them. It's not significant news that somebody's nominated. They're going to congratulate themselves, but all it takes is one person in some level of power to do so. So, according to what I'm reading from British news, the U.S. president's nomination came from right-wing Norwegian politician Christian Tybring-Gjedde, who praised Donald Trump for his efforts towards resolving conflicts worldwide. Talked about a historic peace agreement in Israel. I'm not sure that was really an agreement. He talks about the reduction in military in the Middle East. And listen, there are some truth to the fact that Trump has not started wars. And that was a concern by me when he first got in. I didn't know how his foreign policy, I'm not a fan of his foreign policy, but he hasn't started a war, so there's some truth to that. But I then had to go look up, who is this person? This person has nominated Trump twice for this award. So I'm going to read you the Wikipedia page, and I checked the resources, the sources here. They check out, so this information's accurate. Norwegian politician who represents the Progress Party, has been a member of the Norwegian Parliament since 2005. He is most widely known for his opposition to immigration, especially Muslim immigration, and his claim that Norway is a victim of sneaking Islamization, that Muslim immigrants are threatening Norwegian culture. In 2010, he wrote that we don't believe in multiculture and claimed that immigration of non-ethnic Norwegians is idiocy. This is who nominated Trump. On climate change, he has stated that I don't believe in the climate hysteria. He believes immigration policy to be the single most important political issue facing Norwegian society. I can't imagine why he nominated Trump. In foreign policy, he has supported Vladimir Putin and criticized sanctions against Russia and the conservatives push for. He has also said the West should recognize the Russian occupation and annexation of Crimea. He has been sharply critical of United States foreign policy prior to the election of Donald Trump. In 2018 and 2020, he put forward Trump's name as a candidate for the Nobel Peace Prize. Any member of parliament may propose candidates. So, if you were excited about Trump getting a Nobel Prize nomination, and then you went and read the bio of the person who made that nomination, you're probably not as excited now. This guy, anti-immigration, anti-climate change. Now listen, on climate change, we're going to talk a little bit more about climate change, especially in Branford, but climate change is real. It's happening. Whether you think it's part of a larger cyclical thing or it's going to destroy, that's another problem. But you can't just deny climate change. That's just not. Climate is changing. There's no question about that. This guy publicly supported Putin, the occupation of Crimea, and I love this sentence. He has been sharply critical of United States foreign policy prior to the election of Donald Trump. So no real shock that this nomination came. It doesn't really mean anything. He has no chance to win. He'll certainly love the fact that he was nominated, but an absurd amount of tweets this morning from Trump on this. And it just goes to show the social media problems we have. So I'll give you another example about social media, because that's critical of Trump, but we'll talk a little bit about Chris Murphy. So today, Chris Murphy posts, I'm going to look this up. So here's a comment. Bet you were excited about Obama won his award for doing absolutely nothing. I couldn't care less that Obama won an award. Listen, here's the deal with awards. Some people we never heard of, in a room we've never been to, in a country I've never been to, decide to win these awards. I don't care. It's nonsense. They're all nonsense. They're just, who knows who and who's trying to be friends with somebody else. They're nonsense. Obama should not have won an award, but they're nothing awards. Like, why do we care what 5 or 7 or 10, whatever the board is, people we've never met before, what their opinion is? I can make up my mind for myself. If I feel Obama deserved credit for peace, and I do, quite frankly, after Bush, I do think Obama did a lot to restore America's place in the world. Republicans won't agree with me, but in the world, by the time Bush left, we were shit. No question about that. And Obama did a lot to restore that and repair that. Now, you can have issues with Obama. I do have some. I don't like the way he did not handle China. I'm actually with Trump on the handling of China. I'm not with Trump on the seemingly lack of plan to handle China, but that he's initiated that, I agree with. I think Obama probably should have done more. I think Obama has as much admitted at the time he should have done more. He mentioned it as an issue when he was in office and didn't do anything. China's a significant issue. Trump is right on China. If you want to know where Trump is right, you can look at areas that the Democrats don't fight him on. Because the Democrats in general stay away from China. You never really see them talk about China. Because that's a tough one. Because China wants to be the world leader. They have a 2025 plan, and they have a plan to, they are basically funding all their industries to destroy American industry. So at the end of the day, Trump on China, the need exists to have this war, whether it's trade war or what have you with China. Does he have a plan? I have no idea. I don't see the semblance of a plan. I don't think Trump is looking more than a foot or two in front of his face. And then he's just kind of winging it. So that's my opinion. Zoe just posted, holy cow, I don't know what that means. But if you want to share, you're free to do so. But yeah, I don't put a lot of stock in any Nobel Prizes. I don't put a lot of stock in any strangers deciding who gets awards. It doesn't matter to me. It's nice to watch who wins the Oscars, because the Oscars are people that are voted on by a large group of who are writers and directors and actors who are in movies. They're judging them. But there's a million times I've seen the Oscars and the Best Picture winner is awful. This doesn't make any sense. Parasite won Best Picture last year. It made no sense. So I can decide on my own what movies I like. I can decide on my own what politician deserves praise for their handling of foreign policy, or praise for trying to bring peace to areas where there was no peace. Now, I haven't heard a lot of Democrats talk about this Middle East plan that Trump put forward. I think it's more of a guideline. I don't know if it's a real plan. So that tells me that it's not a terrible thing. In that regard, I can't take credit away from Trump. Because if the Democrats have not attacked him, there's a reason. And they're attacking on other areas where they think they can get some ground. Okay, so we're talking about Chris Murphy. So Chris Murphy today, this is going to defend Trump a little bit. Chris Murphy posted an article, and the article was on how in July, the United States had its worst trade deficit in 12 years. And Chris Murphy put the caption of, this is, we don't truly understand how terrible what damage Trump has done to the economy. We go after Trump for lying, and I think there's multiple documented lies by Trump. I don't think anybody questions that, right? Even his supporters know he's saying stuff that's crazy on a regular basis, that's not true, from the size of crowds, the things that he said or didn't say, or what have you. Happens all the time. But I look at what Chris Murphy said is even worse. And this is how, again, we come back to social media and how they're using social media. Because, yes, the trade deficit was the worst in 12 years in July. The country was shut down due to COVID. A trade deficit is about manufacturing. If you are importing more than you are exporting, you're going to have a trade deficit. And anybody could have told you in March or April when we started shutting down the country that there was going to be a massive trade deficit coming. To blame that on Trump is nonsense. But as soon as you post, hold on, we had COVID, his supporters attack you relentlessly. And this happens on both sides. So I'm not using it just as an example for Democrats. They will attack you relentlessly. And let's not pretend for a second Chris Murphy doesn't know that. That they can post things that are highly misleading, intellectually dishonest, and walk away and let anybody who questions it, or anybody who has alternative evidence or competing evidence, just get attacked and called every name in the book without even a semblance of trying to get the facts right. Every time I see Chris Murphy talk about the lies of Trump, Murphy's not far behind, because he does this on a regular basis, clearly posting things out of context. And before we go crazy, the Trump economy is not bad. Up until February, we had the largest stretch of positive months in economic growth in history. Granted, a lot of that was Obama, and in fairness, under Obama, we couldn't have gotten any worse. So Obama took over, he did some positive things, the stimulus, some of that was Bush, the bailouts, but the stimulus packages, bailing out Detroit, some other things he did, I think were right. Under Trump, I don't agree with the tax cuts. I don't know if they were necessary, but they may have helped the economy a little more. The economy is roaring, and quite frankly, it's still doing well. Recessions happen. Recessions are not the product of presidential activity. Recessions are a product of a normal cycle of economics. Economies expand, they retract. They expand and retract. And it could have been Obama, it could have been Biden, it could have been Trump. It was going to happen. There was no way you're going to go that long without some sort of retract. So to pretend for a second that Trump is responsible for a recession and then responsible for COVID's economic, it makes no sense. Murphy knows that, but he can count on his disciples, and I'll say his cult members, to attack and deploy against anybody who's going to question anything. And to go a step further, I can go on there and say, Chris, this isn't right. And I am immediately labeled a Trump supporter and fan. Because we live in a world where you're either for or against Trump now. There's no in between. You can't, I'm not a Trump supporter, but there's some things you did. No. You're evil and you're awful. If you're not with us, you're against us. And that's what social media does. That's the fake news. The fake news isn't the Russian crap. It's the politicians that you trust, that you look at and say, I listened to this guy, I voted for this guy, who is posting things that are clearly out of context, clearly meant to rile you up. have no intention of making you an informed, intelligent constituent. And that's what's happening everywhere with social media. And it's on the left and the right. I'm not implying for a second one party is better or worse than the other. We're just going to go back to some of these comments. I'm sorry I'm missing them. Holy cow, Trump 2020. Just want to see if my comment would post. Well, then, holy cow, welcome, it could. It's a shame COVID has been so politicized. I thought we were all in this together. I do believe COVID has been overly politicized. So we talked about this in the past. You know, hindsight's 2020, and everybody can say we should have shut the country down much earlier. If the president had suggested shutting the country down, half the governors would have said, no way, you don't have a right to tell me anything, and half would have said, okay. That's just the nation, that's where we're at. We have 50 different countries. Within the United States, there are 50 different countries, different political leaders, and everything's politics. So I don't believe he ever had the real authority to say everything's shut down and anybody's going to listen to him. But I'll say this. Shutting the economy down has negative consequences. We talk about COVID costing lives. The economy being shut down costs lives. No matter how you care about healthcare, people losing their jobs could mean losing healthcare. Depression goes up. Suicide goes up. The inability to pay bills goes up. So at the end of the day, this wasn't an issue of, oh, we got to shut down because of COVID, and there's going to be no other negative consequences if we shut down for COVID. Because when we shut down the economy and people are out of work, there are negative consequences. People die. The greater the unemployment is, the more people die. That's documented. That's true. So in that Oval Office, you have scientists who are saying, based on the evidence we have right now, not a fact, based on the evidence we have now, and this could change, and it did, you should do X. An economist saying, based on the evidence we have now, we should do Y. And so Trump is saying, okay, now he's probably thinking about re-election. He's probably thinking about other things as well. I get that, no problem. It's probably a legit criticism. But somebody has to weigh those out and say, either way, people are going to die. Either way, people are going to lose their lives due to this issue. So what do? What Trump did was say, I got a serious issue, let's downplay it. We closed off travel from China or from some other countries. We did some things. He downplayed it. And sometimes that's the right thing to do, not to get mass hysteria. It's not unheard of. And it turned out we probably should have taken more drastic steps. But had we taken more drastic steps, what would have happened? Would all the Democratic governors have said, you know what, we're behind Trump, we're going to close? I have a really hard time believing that. And then had we drastically shut down everything sooner, would more people have been without health care? More people have lost their jobs. More people have committed suicide. More families been torn apart. There's negative consequences on both sides. The things are not black and white. You could make the argument he didn't handle it as good as he could have, but we know that in hindsight. And I would make the argument that anybody in that position would have had a really hard time making a decision. But give him a little the benefit of the doubt. I don't buy the crap that he has to deal with constantly. However, the guy tweets nonstop. He posts insults nonstop. So at the other side of this, he brings it on himself. This is why I can't support him. Why I can't vote for him. Because so much of the drama and the crap that's created, he initiated. He put out there. And we go back to the same theme that we're going to talk about over and over and over again, and that is social media. I don't want to go off too far because I do want to talk about, I'm missing some of these comments, I'm sorry about that. Talk about what we got today in Branford. So I know not all of our watchers, some are from Guilford or Madison or other towns, but Branford has been really, really ahead of the game when it comes to the environment. And I bring this up primarily because a lot of Democrats emailed me yesterday about the podcast, and so I know a lot of them are watching. And this is kind of one of the reasons why I'm not necessarily active in Democratic politics as much while I'm a registered Democrat, because in Branford we have a Republican first selectman who doesn't care about politics and puts what's best first. So on this, the first selectman initiated what's called, it was part of our plan of conservation and development, created an active pursuit of clean energy. I'll read this. The Board of Selectmen created the Branford Clean Energy Ad Hoc Committee, which drafted the energy plan in response to a request from the first selectman. The draft plan was reviewed and accepted by the Board of Selectmen. The evolution of Branford's energy landscape to clean, renewable energy is designed to improve public health and increase the town's energy resilience. Clean energy also has the potential to save money for the town, businesses, and homeowners. So here's where we can look past politics a little bit. Probably in Branford's history, no one has done more for the environment than Jamie Cosgrove, who was a Republican. The Democrats fought him on much of this. A massive energy conservation plan, Democrats fought him. Solar panels on open space, Democrats fought him. Even on this plan, there were some people saying, it's too much, it's going to cost money. There's no really money involved at this point. And this is where politics hurts us so much. Now, most of the town votes for Jamie Cosgrove. Most of the town supports him. He'd have a hard time losing if he wanted to. But this is a good example of leadership despite politics. And if you're in Branford, I'll just read this a little more. The energy plan outlines a practical approach to energy conversion for the coming decades. Reaching the goal of 100% clean electricity and reduction of fossil fuel dependence will support a better quality of life in Branford and contribute to reaching Connecticut's energy goals. The plan is a living document, which means it'll be modified and changed as we move forward. They're going to end up having some public hearings to address this document, add some things to this document. But Branford has been ahead of this game. There are laws passed in Connecticut because of Branford and their stance on environmental issues, funding environmental issues. And so this is one of those good examples of somebody in a leadership role taking politics and putting it aside and getting things done. I do believe energy conservation, conservation in general, the environment is part of economic development. Part of the appeal of Branford, of Guilford, of Madison are the open spaces we have, the trails we have that are well taken care of by the local land trusts or towns, solar panels, energy cons, those types of things. That helps us economically. That said, those environmentalists can often go overboard when they're stopping any development in other areas of town. But that's another issue, and we'll talk about that another time. Okay, so that's it for today. To those that are just joining us, I know many people are here for their second time because I know a whole new audience came yesterday. I want to thank you for joining us. Tomorrow we'll be back at 4 o'clock. If there are specific topics you want to see discussed or you want me to answer or questions, I'd be glad to do that. Just email me, send a message in. I'd be glad to. And then tomorrow we'll end our week. We'll be back next Monday. I want to say thank you for joining us. Have a great night. I will see you tomorrow at 4 o'clock.